Caruana opens the game with the English opening. Pawn to c4 played here. What a clash this is going to be. Caruana, who has been world number 2 for years, currently pushed down a bit on the world ranking to number 4, but still amazingly strong player. He goes c4, e5, knight comes out to c3, and Praggnanandhaa generally is tremendously well prepared in the opening. Now the main move is knight f6. He goes bishop b4. Very interesting move. Attacking the knight here. Many times you just want to take it, give white the double pawns. But Fabi jumps forward and attacks the bishop here on b4. And now the bishop drops back to c5. It is looking at the f2 pawn here. And Caruana taking his time here for this move. He plays e3, but after 10 minutes of thought. And now Pragg has a decision to make. He very quickly puts his knight out on f6. Look at the times here. Pragg has 1 hour 30 minutes. Fabi has 1 hour 20 minutes. The way to play here is either b4, d4. These are the possible moves here. But it seems like Fabi wants to take Pragg out of his preparation, which is why he plays knight e2, but that too after 21 minutes of thought. So he's taken a lot of time here. Knight comes to e2. And now Pragg takes the knight on d5. Knight takes d5. Pawn takes. Here he takes in the center. And black has a very comfortable position here. I think d6 makes a lot of sense. Just getting the pawn into the center. First, Pragg castles here. And Fabi can actually push d4 in this position, but he decides to play knight to c3. The structure is quite interesting. Generally, white does get some pressure down the c file, but here white is seriously lagging behind in development. The bishop has to come out, white has to castle. Meanwhile, black has this simple plan of f5, f4. He goes bishop e2, and I believe it's time to start pushing f5. It's interesting actually, f5 as a move, but also knight a4 could win this bishop. So when should Pragg go a6, trying to keep the bishop? He goes knight d7, and if you go knight a4 now, I can simply ignore it and try to attack the d5 pawn. So Fabi castles here, and Pragg, what's his plan next going to be? Does he go f5 here, or does he take some time to make a luft for the bishop to go back? He plays pawn to a6, making a square for the bishop here on a7. A good move by Pragg. And Caruana now plays pawn to a3. This is not particularly a great idea. And Pragg can actually go f5 now, followed by knight f6 or f4. The position looks very nice. Instead, he goes bishop a7. Just putting the bishop back, tucking it there. And Fabi pushes his pawn to b4. He wants to get his bishop to b2. Maybe knight a4, rook c1. These are the plans he has on his mind. He goes knight f6, and this is where it was very surprising, like Pragg going for this. He could play f5. Very, very nice, strong move. I'm very surprised that Pragg chooses this plan. But I also get it. What he's trying to do here is he wants to break with c6. So instead of trying for this very aggressive plan, he's going for a more centralized approach, bishop b2, and he's going to play c6. But that will undouble the white pawns after c6, and will also give Fabi's bishops quite a bit of breathing space here. So surely the opening has worked out for Fabi, but you can see on the clock he has already used up half of his time. 45 minutes. Pragg has 1 hour on the clock. Now he brings his rook to the semi-open file there. Rook c1 has been played. And Pragg, maybe he gets his bishop out, bishop b7, maybe bishop here, he goes to b7. Well, both the bishops cannot be happy if this bishop is closed. If you push c5, this will get opened, but the bishop on a7 is closed. So he pushes f4 here. And the pawn moving to f4 opens up the rook. Also, this bishop is quite active here. So pawn to c5 played here by Pragg. Very interesting move there by Praggnanandhaa. He's saying, I want it all. I want to take here and then both my bishops will be super active. Queen e1 by Fabi. He's coming to h4 with his queen, with his rook standing here and also the bishop. There could be a very big attack. Pawn takes pawn taken here. It takes back, pawn takes pawn. And now Pragg here plays queen to e7. He's looking in the central direction, but more than anything, he just wants to bolster this pawn. Queen comes to h4. And Caruana, while he's putting the pressure on Pragg's position, his time on the clock is down to 10 minutes. Pragg has 25 minutes on the clock. He plays h6 move. Just a useful move there. But if Caruana plays rook f2 and rook f1, he would have a huge attack there. But he plays b5. Not the best move in the position. But now after pawn takes, knight takes, bishop b8 or bishop b6, you have to stop rook c7 here. This is the main threat, attacking the bishop and the queen. So bishop b6 makes sense. But he goes bishop b8, and this does two things. It stops the rook from coming in, but also defends d6. So later on, the bishop cannot attack it. Bishop c3 played. He wants to bring his bishop to b4. And Pragg goes here, maybe with the rook to c8. He plays his rook here. He puts his rook on the c file. Well, Caruana plays rook b1, and look at the time on his clock. He has only 2 minutes left, and he still has to make 18 moves. Not going to be easy. And Pragg here, trying to move his bishop, goes bishop c6. He's keeping the bishop here, putting pressure on the b5 knight. Rook to b4 by Caruana. A very interesting move, because if you jump with knight d5, I can just trade queens. And yeah, I don't know if you want to trade queens here. d5 by Pragg. He's attacking the rook. Also pushing in the center, maybe wants to push d4. And Fabi takes here on e5. The queen now defends the rook. Also, you will see that the rook on f1 opens up. White does have the d4 square for his pieces. So a lot of things going Fabi's way. He does play knight d4. But for Pragg, if you look at his position, it's also very solid. His pieces are all nicely placed. The rook is very active here. The other rook is active. Bishop d7 kind of takes into control all the knight jumps. So all in all, an excellent move here by Pragg. And now rook b7. Fabi trying to create something here, but he has only a minute left. Pragg also down to 5 minutes. We have time pressure. Pragg comes back, queen e8. The nice thing is that the bishop defends the knight, so there are no exchange sacrifices here, but bishop jumps in to d3, putting pressure. How does white meet this? Rook b8. I love this, how Pragg is step by step neutralizing Fabi's initiative. And Caruana takes on b8. I think you can take back with the rook as well as the queen. Both look pretty good. Pragg takes back with the rook. Rook takes b8. And now bishop to f5 played. He plays rook to b6, just keeping pressure here on the black knight. Takes. And now knight takes d7 played by Pragg. Again, being very solid. And now both players down to a minute on the clock. He goes knight e2, offering a trade. The only thing that is not going Pragg's way is his pawn on d5 is a bit weak. He plays knight to f6. And now bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop. Taken. And he plays his knight to d4. Goes rook b2. Now putting pressure on the b2 pawn. Here d2 pawn. Queen comes back to f2. And yes, the knight jumping in would be nice, but for now the pawn is hanging on f7. So king h7 by Pragg, and now maybe he has the plans of knight e4. He goes knight f3. Let's see what Pragg comes up with here. Pragg also going all the way down to 49 seconds. He plays his queen to b8. Fabi has 2 minutes 39 seconds, but 35 seconds, but we are already on move 35. 5 more moves to make. Offers a queen trade here. And Caruana, I believe, will take it. He'll take the queen. Rook takes. And Pragg has played like the most solid game like one can play with the black pieces. They are giving no real chance to Fabi. Knight e5 is a nice move. He's looking at the f7 pawn. And Pragg goes aggressive. He goes rook d2. If you take on f7 here, I'll simply take the pawn on d2. So pawn comes up to d3. Now both these pawns are a little soft. He plays his rook to d2, attacking the d3 pawn. And you go g4. Well, Fabi wants to play h4, g5 here. Try to create something. As 40th move is done here, he'll get 30 extra minutes. Pragg goes rook e2, putting pressure here on e3. And Pragg played that last move with just 3 seconds on his clock. So he made full use of his time. Rook f3 played. And now the king comes back to g8, defending this pawn on f7. And Pragg did take some serious time for that move. Fabi pushes forward his pawn to h4. He's hoping for a g5 break, followed by some pressure on f7. Rook d2 played, attacking the d3 pawn. And now king comes to f1. h5 played here. It's a very interesting move because if you play g5, I can simply jump into g4, and that's very interesting because if you take knight f7, there is knight h2 check, which is winning for black. So Fabi takes here on h5. Pragg takes on h5. If you take on f7, I can take rook d3. If you take with the rook on f7, then I can still take here on d3 with the rook. He does take rook f7. And Praggnanandhaa is taking his time. 14 minutes for both players. They are playing right until the very end. Very fighting game. Takes on d3. Attacking the e3 pawn here. If you take the rook, I take your rook as well. Rook takes g7. Taken. So he's now a pawn up. Pragg takes back with the knight. That's very smart. Because now he'll go to f5, forking these two pawns. So he does play knight f5. Fabi goes knight f4, attacking this pawn on d5. He can take here with a check. And now king e2 attacks the knight. The knight has to move. White will take this pawn. Black will take this pawn. And this, dear friends, is heading towards a draw. What a game this was. I believe that Fabi did not play the opening so well. Pragg did put him under some pressure. But in the end, it was Fabi who just came under no time pressure. Even though he had very little time, he made all the moves. And Pragg was so solid. It's amazing to see Pragg holding his own against one of the best players in the world with black pieces with almost no difficulty. Pragg starts his tournament with 2 draws, one against Gukesh, one against Fabi, and let's see how he does in the coming rounds. For now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.